like to, not just food prices, but the cost of living. And I'd like to introduce the panel that we're having here this morning. And I'll start with my extreme left, where we have Miruru Waweru, who is the chair of Third Way Alliance. Thank you for joining us this morning. We also have Professor Michael Wainaina, who is a presidential aspirant and candidate who is going on an independent ticket. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Michael.
Last but not least, we have Stephen Obiru, who is also one who is you're in advocacy and planning. So let's have this conversation. Remember, you're welcome to participate in this conversation. Let us know what your thoughts are. And gentlemen, of course, the issue that we have in Kenya right now is the cost of living, which has become extremely unbearable. Let me start with you, Mr. Waweru, and find possibly what do you think is the problem?
Generally, in a free market like Kenya, the cost of commodities is determined by forces of demand and supply. So once you have a shortage of commodities, the prices will naturally go up because the commodities, the demand is still higher than the supply. Mm-hmm. So even any efforts to bring down the prices without increasing the supply may not help at all. So
so as far as you're concerned, the issue is that there is an issue of supply? I mean, of supply of the commodities.
So I think the shortage of supply due to certain, due to mismanagement. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at Kenya, and I think our leaders have been trying to excuse themselves of a lot of issues on mismanagement.
So is the issue supply or management?
It is a management problem, because if you look at desert countries, people are still feeding and they are not talking of shortage of food. Mm-hmm. But in Kenya, which is a humid country, we are still talking of a shortage of food after 54 years of independence, because we have never taken food security seriously. Mm-hmm. We have never our leaders have never taken food security seriously, because now if sugar is going at 200 shillings, our leaders will still be able to afford it. The ordinary Mwananchi is the one who is suffering, but they don't seem to care much about it.
All right, let me come to you, Mr. Obiru. Your thoughts on why we are where we are today?
The problem we are experiencing is because of our low productivity when it comes to how we produce our food, basic foodstuffs. Mm-hmm. We are not producing enough for us. That's the basic problem.
So supply is what is the problem?
Yes, and what we need is to increase our productivity. How we produce in our farms and all that. We need to be more innovative and come up with very good measures that can ensure that it's not just about the land, the land mass that we are cultivating, but the actual amount of the foodstuff we are able to produce.
Okay. Professor, yes. What is ailing us as a country, given that 54 years later, yes, we seem to be having a recurrent problem?
Yes.
We one time have floods,
yeah,
the next day we are talking of droughts. It's like we can never balance.
Michael, we don't have a food crisis. Mm-hmm. I don't see a food crisis.
You don't see one?
I don't see one. Mm-hmm. I see a leadership crisis, a governance crisis. When nothing is working, Michael, it is not because things are not supposed to work. Mm-hmm. It is because somebody is not doing their job. But when it comes to the question of food, I would like to remind the viewer that food is a multi-billion shillings business. So when you and I, Michael, are talking about a food crisis, talking about a food shortage, when you're talking about a problem, there is a businessman somewhere who is going to make a killing out of this crisis. So that when you come to the bottom of it, we do not have a food problem. We have a political problem. Because the people who are involved in the food business are the people who are in politics. The people who are going to benefit from the so-called crisis are the politicians. And this is a very opportune time for the politicians to benefit because, Michael, I don't need to remind you that there is an election coming and these guys do need money to run an election. And where is the money going to come from? It's going to come from you and
Are
me.
you suggesting that then it is a deliberate exercise to have a food shortage for the benefit of some?
Michael, can you explain to me why in this day and age a country like Kenya would have a food crisis? Just explain to me using natural causes. Okay, natural causes. And you say
The excuse that they have used and they have
Yes,
given
yes.
is what we'd call an act of God.
Which is-
drought is not something that is man-made. It is an act of God.
Drought is not something which is man-made. I agree. But drought is not an emergency. Drought can be forecasted. Drought can be mitigated. Drought can be managed. So that when we talk about the current food crisis, it has nothing to do with natural conditions. Because if, for example, if 10 seasons fail in Kenya, okay, they have not failed in Uganda, they have not failed in South Africa, they have not failed in other places in the world. That means it is possible for us to mitigate drought conditions 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, okay? That should not be a problem. So that what we have currently cannot be called a natural catastrophe. It is a man-made artificial catastrophe. And Michael, believe you me, somebody is benefiting big time
From this
crisis.
Mr. Oweru, your thoughts on that it could actually be by design that we are where we are.
It is actually by design.
It is.
You agree?
A few years ago, when from 2013, we saw our MCAs, including, I think, from the top up to the president. These guys, they were traveling to overseas countries, even to Israel, to go and see agricultural models, those kind of things. But eventually, I find it very peculiar that our leaders can travel to Israel to go and see farming methods, whereas they are not trained agriculturalists. There is a lot of research here. If you go to Egerton University, you see the demonstration farms there. They don't reflect what we are doing in the farms. If you go to the University of Nairobi Upper Kabete campus, there's a lot of research there. You go to JKUAT, there's a lot of research there which our leaders don't know. They are refusing to implement what we already have here. But now there are questions which are not being answered now here. After spending all that money traveling across the globe to look to make politicians run how agriculture works, when we have trained professional agriculturists and agronomists, all these professionals, we have not had any solutions. Number two, there's National Cereals and Produce Board, who observes, who looks at the minimum stocks, and why didn't they plan beforehand? This is a management, this is a sabotage by the government. The government from the top knows where this crisis came from. And I'll take you back. Some of us, we are now going to, we are in our middle age, in 40s. If we go back to 1991, 92, there was a similar crisis like this one. And it has always recurred mostly to us when we have elections.
Yes.
Because these thugs, they have to come and make money, go out, dish out handouts to people. Then after that, they come back. It is a cycle. It is cyclical. It is cyclical.
Okay.
But I think now we must make. That is why, like in Third Way Alliance, we are saying one of our pillars is to end social and economic injustice. Because when you leave your people in a country without food, what else would you talk even of development? Even as a leader of a country or any other leader in any position in this country should be very ashamed when they are talking of development when you have a hungry population.
All right, and let me just pause you right there. I'm coming to you, Mr. Stephen Obiro, who is a manager in research in policy and advocacy. And what we're talking about here is the soaring food prices, and not just the soaring food prices, but also the cost of living in Kenya has become unbearable now. From what the panel is saying so far, apparently it could be by design that we are where we are. What are your thoughts? Do let us know. We want to take a short break.